Look at your tomato plant. Go outside right now and look at it. It's tall, it's green, it's got leaves the size of your hand. It looks healthy. It looks like the picture on the fertilizer bag. And that's exactly the problem, because the picture on the fertilizer bag is a lie. Not a small lie, not a white lie. A lie designed to sell you more fertilizer. That plant on the bag, the one with the deep green leaves and the thick stem and the lush canopy, that plant is doing exactly what a plant does when you give it everything it wants. It's growing, it's expanding, it's building more leaves, more branches, more stem, and it is not, repeat not, producing tomatoes. Your plant looks incredible and it's giving you nothing. Meanwhile, somewhere in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, an Amish woman is standing in a kitchen garden with 60 tomato plants that look rougher than yours, shorter, less lush, a little ragged around the edges. And every single one of those plants is hanging so heavy with fruit that the stakes are bending. 60 plants, feeding a family of 12, producing enough tomatoes to can 300 quarts of sauce, salsa, and whole tomatoes that'll last through March. Your plant is a showpiece. Hers is a production line. And the difference isn't soil. It isn't magic. It isn't some secret Amish seed variety you can't buy. The difference is that she knows something about tomato plants that the garden center will never tell you, because telling you would cut their fertilizer sales in half. Here it is. A tomato plant produces fruit when it's stressed. Not dying, not diseased, stressed, mildly uncomfortable, slightly threatened. A plant with unlimited water, unlimited nitrogen, and unlimited room to grow does what any living organism with unlimited resources does. It expands, it gets bigger, it invests in itself. Reproduction, fruit, seeds, that's what organisms do when conditions tighten, when water gets scarce, when nutrients plateau, when competition shows up. A tomato plant that senses things might get harder does the biological equivalent of writing a will. It makes fruit seeds. The next generation, because the tomato isn't a gift the plant gives you. It's a survival strategy the plant triggers when it thinks it might not make it. The Amish don't know the term reproductive trigger. They don't read botany journals, but they know that the plant you pamper gives you leaves and the plant you challenge gives you fruit. And they've been challenging their tomato plants for 150 years with 5 specific methods. Not tips, not hacks. 5 forms of controlled stress that trigger fruiting without killing the plant. This video is those 5 methods, and by the end, you'll understand why everything you've been doing in your garden has been sending your tomato plant exactly the wrong message. 60 plants, 300 quarts, 11 minutes of work twice a week. Remember those numbers? They're gonna matter. But first, you need to understand what's actually happening inside that plant. Because until you see the biology, the methods sound like folk wisdom. And they're not. They're precision. Every tomato plant you've ever grown is making a decision every single day. And the decision is simple: grow or reproduce. That's it. 2 options. The plant looks at what's coming in: water, nitrogen, light, space, and it runs a calculation that evolution spent millions of years perfecting. If resources are abundant, the answer is grow. Build more roots, push out more branches, unfurl more leaves, capture more sunlight, get bigger, dominate the space. Why reproduce when life is good? There's no urgency, no threat, no reason to make seeds. But if resources start to tighten, if water drops, if nitrogen slows, if roots hit competition, the calculation flips. The plant shifts from expansion mode to reproduction mode. It pulls energy out of leaf production and pushes it into flowers, then fruit, then seeds. And it does this fast because the window might be closing. This isn't philosophy. This is measurable. Botanists have tracked it. Reduce water by 30% after fruit set and sugar concentration in the fruit goes up. Cut nitrogen after flowering and flower to fruit conversion rates climb. The plant isn't guessing, it's responding. Now here's the thing. There are two kinds of tomato plants, and this matters. Indeterminate varieties, that's most heirloom types, most of what the Amish grow, Brandywine, Rutgers, Mortgage Lifter, German Johnson, these grow all season long. They keep making new branches, new flowers, new fruit from July until frost kills them. They never stop on their own, which means they need you to manage them, to send the right signals, to control the stress, determinate varieties, the bush types, a lot of the hybrids from the catalog. Those set their fruit once and stop. They're self-limiting. The methods in this video apply primarily to indeterminate types, because those are the ones that will run wild on you if you let them. And those are the ones the Amish grow, because a plant that produces over a longer season feeds the family longer, so keep that in mind. If you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, which most serious growers are, every single method here is built for you. And the very thing you thought was helping your plant, all that water, all that fertilizer, all that space, is exactly what's keeping it from doing the one thing you planted it to do. That calculation the plant runs every day, you're part of it. You just didn't know you were sending signals. Every time you water, you send a signal. Every time you fertilize, you send a signal. Every time you leave a sucker growing, you send a signal. And your plant has been listening, carefully, responding rationally, doing exactly what you told it to do. You told it to grow leaves, not on purpose, but the message was clear. Here's how. 3 ways you've been telling your tomato plant that life is perfect and there's no reason to make fruit. Number 1, too much nitrogen. Nitrogen is the growth hormone of the plant world. It builds green tissue, leaves, stems, branches, and the fertilizer industry loves it because nitrogen makes plants look amazing. That October 10th 10 bag you've been sprinkling every 2 weeks, the first number is nitrogen. And after your plant flowers, every grain of that nitrogen is screaming at the plant. Keep growing, life is great, no need to reproduce. Number 2, too much water. You water every day because you're a good gardener. You care. But a tomato plant with constantly wet roots never feels thirst, never feels scarcity, never triggers the stress response that says, make fruit now before the water runs out. Daily watering keeps your roots shallow, your plant comfortable, and your harvest thin. Number 3, too many growing points. Every sucker, every side shoot growing in the crotch between a branch and the main stem is a new growing point, a new mouth to feed, a new direction the plant's energy can scatter into. Leave them all, and the plant splits its resources 10, 15, 20 ways. Each growing point gets a little energy, none gets enough to produce serious fruit. You end up with a sprawling jungle that sets a few small tomatoes in October, too late to ripen before frost. 3 signals, 3 mistakes, all of them well-intentioned, all of them sending the same message to the plant: don't bother fruiting, life is easy. The Amish figured this out without a single soil test, without a single YouTube video, without a single bag of October 10th 10. They figured it out by watching what works over 150 years and throwing away what doesn't. And the first thing that works, the thing they do twice a week, without fail, takes 11 minutes for 60 plants? The answer is sucker removal. Method 1, and it's the single most important thing you can do to shift your tomato plant from leaf machine to fruit factory. Here's what a sucker is. Look at your tomato plant. Find a branch growing out from the main stem. Now look at the joint where that branch meets the stem. See that little shoot growing right in the crotch? That V-shaped angle where stem meets branch? That's a sucker. It's a brand new growing point. Left alone, it becomes a full branch with its own leaves, its own flowers, its own suckers, and its own demand on the plant's energy budget. Now here's what most gardeners think. They think more branches means more tomatoes. Makes sense, right? More flowers, more fruit. But that's not how the math works on an indeterminate plant, because every new branch the plant feeds is energy pulled away from the branches that already have fruit developing. You end up with 20 branches, each producing a few small, late tomatoes, instead of 6 branches each, producing heavy, early, full-sized fruit. The Amish remove suckers twice a week, Tuesday and Friday in most households. They walk the row, 60 plants, and they snap off every sucker that's shorter than a thumb. 11 minutes. That's it. From June to September, the signal this sends is blunt. You have fewer growing points now. Stop spreading. Invest in what you've got. And the plant listens. It pushes energy into the existing fruit. The tomatoes get bigger. They ripen faster. They ripen more evenly. You get fewer total fruit per plant, but each fruit is larger, tastier, and ready weeks earlier. And here's something nobody tells you. Those late season suckers, the ones that sprout in August and set flowers in September, they'll never produce ripe fruit before frost. Never. You're letting the plant waste energy on tomatoes you'll never eat. The Amish know this. That's why the schedule is non-negotiable. Tuesday, Friday, snap, walk, done. 11 minutes for 60 plants. That number matters because it proves this isn't some labor-intensive hobby farm technique. It's fast, it's simple, and it's the single biggest yield booster you can do with your bare hands and zero equipment. But removing suckers is only half the equation. Because even a well-pruned plant will choose leaves over fruit if you keep dumping nitrogen into the soil after flowering. And that mistake, that specific mistake, is what the fertilizer industry is counting on you to make. The bag says October 10th, 10. Use every 2 weeks all season long, and your plant responds beautifully. It gets tall, dark green, thick stems. It looks like it belongs on the cover of a gardening magazine, and it's building a leaf empire instead of feeding your family. Here's the biology. Nitrogen is the building block of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll lives in leaves. More nitrogen means more leaves. Simple. Before your plant flowers, nitrogen is fine. Good. Even. You want a strong frame, healthy leaves, a robust root system. The plant is in its growth phase, and nitrogen supports that. But the moment those first yellow flowers open, the game changes. The plant is ready to shift into reproduction mode. It's ready to build fruit. And if you keep pouring nitrogen into the soil, you're overriding that shift. You're telling the plant, don't switch. Stay in growth mode. Resources are still coming. Keep building. The Amish handle this with brutal simplicity. Spring. Compost goes in the ground before transplanting. Good, rich, aged compost, nitrogen included. The plant uses it to build its frame through May and June. They side dress with wood ash. Wood ash is high in potassium, has some phosphorus, and almost no nitrogen. Potassium and phosphorus are the fruit-building nutrients. They support flower development, fruit set, seed production, the exact things you want the plant doing after it flowers. That's the entire Amish fertilizer program. Compost in spring, wood ash in July, done. No October 10th, 10. No liquid feed every 2 weeks. No miraculous blue crystals dissolved in a watering can. Bone meal works too if you don't have wood ash. It's high in phosphorus, a handful around the base of each plant in early July. The signal, nitrogen is done, phosphorus is here, time to build fruit. Stay with me for a second because this next part is where most gardeners really lose the plot. Because even if you nail the nitrogen and you nail the suckers, there's a third signal that can undo everything. And it's the one that feels the most wrong to change because it goes against every instinct a caring gardener has: water. You water your tomatoes every day because that's what good gardeners do, right? You water in the morning, you water when it's hot, you water because the leaves look a little droopy at 2 p.m. and you feel guilty. And every single time you do it, you tell the plant the same thing: water is infinite. Don't worry, don't stress, don't fruit. Here's how the Amish water tomatoes. They don't have drip systems, they don't have soaker hoses, they don't have timers or sensors or apps on their phones. They have a watering can, and they water when the plant looks like it needs it. Not on a schedule, not every morning when the plant tells them. That sounds vague. It's not. A tomato plant that needs water wilts slightly in the afternoon heat and recovers by evening, that's normal. That's not distress. A tomato plant that needs water wilts in the morning and doesn't recover by noon, that's the signal. Water deeply. Then wait. The Amish let the top 2 inches of soil dry out between waterings. They water deeply twice a week once fruit is set. Not a light sprinkle every day, which just keeps the surface wet and the roots shallow, a deep soak that sends water down to the root zone, then nothing for 3 or 4 days. The plant feels that dry period, it registers it, and it responds by accelerating fruit production. Make seeds now. Water might not last. Now here's the bonus nobody talks about. Tomatoes grown with less water taste better. That's not folklore. It's chemistry. Less water means less dilution of the sugars and acids inside the fruit. The flavor concentrates. An Italian farmer could have told you this. So could your grandmother. The tomatoes from the dry garden always tasted better than the ones from the soggy patch. More sugar, more acid, more actual tomato flavor. You're not just growing more tomatoes by cutting back on water, you're growing better ones. But water discipline and nitrogen discipline and sucker management, those three together, they still don't explain the full picture. Because the Amish do something with plant spacing that directly contradicts almost every planting guide on the internet. And the reason it works is underground, where you can't see it. The internet says plant your tomatoes 36 inches apart. Give them room, let them breathe. The Amish plant at 18 to 24 inches. Closer, tighter, shoulder to shoulder if tomatoes had shoulders. And every extension office in America would tell you that's too close. Here's why the Amish do it anyway. When tomato roots spread out and hit another plant's roots, something happens. Competition. Not the friendly kind. Underground warfare for water and nutrients. Each root system senses the other. Each plant registers that the resources in the soil aren't unlimited. There's a rival, and that registration triggers the same stress response as reduced water or reduced nitrogen. The plant shifts from growth to reproduction. Fruit now because the neighbor is taking your nutrients. The spacing matters. 18 to 24 inches is close enough to trigger root competition, but far enough that the canopy doesn't shade out. You still want sunlight on every plant. You don't want them so close the lower leaves rot from poor air circulation. The Amish have dialed this in over generations. They know the spacing by feel, two hand widths between transplants, roughly 20 inches, close enough to compete, far enough to produce. And this is where the scale starts to make sense. Remember those numbers from the beginning? 60 plants, family of 12, 300 quarts. Here's how that math works. Each properly stressed indeterminate plant, an old variety like Brandywine or Mortgage Lifter or German Johnson, each one produces 30 to 50 tomatoes through the season, not decorative cherry tomatoes, full-sized, meaty, 1-pound slicers. 60 plants at 40 tomatoes average is 2,400 tomatoes. That's enough to can 200 to 300 quarts of sauce, salsa, stewed tomatoes, and whole peeled tomatoes, enough to feed a family of 12 from August through March. Your grandmother did this. Maybe not at Amish scale, but she canned. She knew what a productive plant looked like, and she didn't buy it from a bag. The Amish don't grow cherry tomatoes, they don't grow grape tomatoes, they grow production varieties. Brandywine for slicing, Rutgers for canning, Roma for sauce, Mortgage Lifter because the name tells you everything. A man bred it during the Depression so he could sell enough tomatoes to pay off his house. Those are the varieties built for feeding people, not for Instagram. And those varieties, grown tight, pruned hard, fed right, and watered lean, they produce like nothing you've seen in a suburban backyard. But even all four methods together leave one problem unsolved: the calendar. Because frost doesn't care about your harvest plan, and the plant doesn't know what month it is, somebody has to tell it. And the way the Amish tell it is the most counterintuitive move of all five. Method 5. The August top. 6 to 8 weeks before the first expected frost in your area, you walk out to your tomato patch with a pair of clippers and you cut the top off the main stem of every plant. Just cut it right above the last fruit cluster you want to keep. Then you go through each plant and remove every new flower, every blossom that opened in the last week. Every tiny green nub of a fruit that just started forming, gone. This feels violent, it feels wrong. You spent all season growing this plant and now you're cutting it back. But here's what you're doing in biological terms. You're sending the final signal: growth is over, the season is closing, there is no more time. Ripen what you have. The plant has no choice now. It can't grow taller. It can't set new fruit. It can't start new branches. Every ounce of energy, every bit of sugar the leaves produce, every nutrient the roots pull up, all of it goes into one place: the existing fruit. Green tomatoes start turning pink. Pink tomatoes push to red. Hard tomatoes soften. Flavor develops. The Amish call this telling the plant it's done. And it works because the plant responds to the signal the way it responds to every other form of stress. It shifts from growth to urgency. The ripening accelerates by 2 to 3 weeks compared to an untopped plant. And those flowers you removed, they were never going to produce ripe fruit anyway. A flower that opens in late August doesn't produce a ripe tomato until late October. In most of the country, frost kills the plant in September or October. Those late flowers are wasted energy. The plant doesn't know that. You do. Now, before we wrap up, let's run through the 5 most common mistakes. Fast. Number 1, using October 10th, 10 all season. You now know why. Nitrogen after flowering equals leaves, not fruit. Number 2, watering every day. Shallow roots. no stress signal, comfortable plant, thin harvest. Number 3, leaving all the suckers because you think more branches means more tomatoes. It doesn't. It means more small, late tomatoes and a plant that can't focus its energy. Number 4, planting in too much shade. A tomato plant that doesn't get 6 to 8 hours of direct sun stretches and grows tall, reaching for light instead of setting fruit. Leggy plants produce less, period. Number 5, not topping in August. You let the plant keep setting fruit that won't ripen, and the fruit that could have ripened stays green because the plant is splitting its energy. 5 mistakes. 5 things almost every gardener does, and every single one of them sends the same signal to the plant. Keep growing, life is good, no rush to reproduce. The Amish don't make these mistakes, not because they're smarter, because they can't afford to. When 60 plants are feeding 12 people through winter, there's no room for decorative gardening. How is it possible that a community without the internet, without soil test kits, without a single garden center within buggy distance, figured out exactly the right way to stress a tomato plant? They watched. That's it. They watched for 150 years and they kept what worked. They noticed that the plant they forgot to water produced more fruit. They noticed that the one the kids broke the top off of ripened faster. They noticed that the crowded row outproduced the spaced out row. And they didn't write a research paper about it. They just kept doing it. Generation after generation, mother to daughter, father to son. Tuesday and Friday, walk the row, snap the suckers. Compost in April, wood ash in July. Water when the plant asks, not when the calendar says. Plant them close enough to compete. Top them when August hits. 5 methods, no technology, no subscription, no app. No fertilizer with a picture of a perfect plant on the bag. And the results? 30 to 50 tomatoes per plant. 200 to 300 quarts canned per season. Enough to feed a family that doesn't go to the grocery store for tomato sauce. Ever. Remember the beginning of this video? Your plant, the tall one, the green one, the one that looks exactly like the picture on the bag? That plant is listening to you right now. It's reading every signal you send through the soil, through the water, through the pruning you do or don't do. And so far, you've been telling it the same thing. Life is easy. Resources are unlimited. No need to make fruit. Starting tomorrow, you can change the conversation. Pick up those suckers, put down the nitrogen, let the soil dry out a little, plant them closer next year, and when August comes, tell the plant it's done. The Amish didn't invent this. The tomato plant did. The Amish just listened. And now, so have you. If your grandmother used to can tomatoes, or if you remember a garden that actually produced, drop that memory in the comments. What variety did she grow? How close did she plant them? Those stories matter more than any gardening guide. If this changed how you think about your garden, hit the like button. And if you know someone who's been drowning their tomato plants in fertilizer and water all summer, send them this video. They need to hear it before next season. 73% of people watching right now aren't subscribed. That means YouTube won't show you the next one. And next week, we're going deeper into the lost kitchen garden methods the Amish still use for peppers, beans, and squash. Same biology, same logic, different plants. Subscribe so you don't miss it. One click, it's free, and your tomatoes will thank you.